Hello Star Wars enthusiasts, and welcome to my series Crosshair Explained, Remastered Edition! I know I haven't even finished the series to begin with, but every time I go back and watch the first 2 episodes, yeesh, I don't like them. So why Crosshair and why explaining him? Because he's a fascinating specimen. Fascinating. But in all seriousness, he's a prime candidate for my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Maybe even my favorite character of all time. However, I feel like his character is misunderstood a lot of the time, and his arc isn't entirely clear. I believe that the writers took a lot of care in crafting his character and story, but much of that story requires you to pay attention to the small details you might not be used to looking for. So come with me and we'll dissect this truly outrageous man. The most difficult part of this process is working around the fact that this man is given very little screen time before he is thrown off his baseline like these droids are thrown off this cliff. This becomes an issue because the core of his story revolves around him having a massive personality change. Many people misunderstand Crosshair's story because of this. There's a huge difference between being an antagonistic asshole and, well, this. So to establish a baseline, I need to take from the small samplings we get from his character arc in Season 7 of the Clone Wars. Crosshair is a genetically modified sniper.
How perceptive.
Already this sets him apart from his brothers, and that he isn't always in the heart of the action like the rest of them are. However, we know that his brothers trust him implicitly to have their back. From his vantage point, he can see the battle as a whole and be able to locate and neutralize threats that the others might not be able to see.
You never could see the bigger picture.
However, this does make him somewhat of a loner. D. Bradley Baker once described him as a lone wolf that doesn't play well with others. Because of this, his relationship with his brothers is very special. If it weren't for the fact that he was forced into this close-knit group that became even closer as they endured rejection from the regs, Crosshair might not have anyone he could consider family. Though Crosshair is a product of unfortunate circumstance, at least those circumstances did him one solid by giving him every reason to form a close bond with his brothers. Because he grew up doing everything with Tech, Hunter, and Wrecker, he was able to develop affection, companionship, camaraderie, which is huge for someone who is predisposed to being antisocial. Crosshair may not easily trust other people, but he learned to trust because of the badge. But because of his severe nature, you're either his friend or his enemy, and there is very little wiggle room there. Crosshair displays this antisocial behavior quite spectacularly when he comes face to face with these faces. Regs. He is so hostile towards them, it's almost comical. I mean, it is comical. Look at him commit to the glare. Look at it! This, to me, is a defense mechanism brought on by being ostracized by the regs. My therapist would call it a trauma response. And as a result of this, Crosshair isn't just gonna trust any reg. However, there is a way to earn his trust and respect. Cody once did it, and Rex does it too. In fact, it's one of my favorite things that Rex earns his trust and respect by punching him in the face. Rex showed that he was willing to defend his brother, even when his commanding officer was present, which is exactly something Crosshair would do. Crosshair is not a complicated person. You show him loyalty and trust, and he will show it back to you. And he will commit to that, and he will be your friend for life. I say all this to make the point that this Imperial Crosshair with the fanatical loyalty to the Empire doesn't make any sense for his character. The Empire has done nothing to prove its loyalty to him. It hijacked his mind and robbed him of his loyalty. So, now that the baseline of who Crosshair is and what he values is fresh in your minds, let's actually start talking about his story in the Bad Batch. It all starts here when he meets Depa Billaba. Caleb must have done a really good job to impress Crosshair because right off the bat he shows a lot more respect to Depa Billaba than he has to basically anybody that he's encountered so far. I mean, look at this polite nod. What a gentleman! It seems like he really likes Caleb and by extension his master, which makes things, you know, all the more jarring when suddenly he's behaving differently later. I think it's safe to say that Crosshair's chip wasn't active during the moment they turned to see what's going on behind them. He seems just as confused as his brothers. And if the order were active in him at this moment, he would have at the very least tried to shoot Caleb. So when exactly does the chip take its hold? Take a look at the blocking in this scene right here. Look how he is right up close to the camera, yet out of focus while his brothers all interact behind him. He is just staring blankly forward. Something is going on there in his brain. However, we don't get to see it truly take over his will until he and Hunter find Caleb. This is also where we get introduced to the chip's musical theme.
There.
Come on down, kid. We're here to help. No! Liar! What are you doing?
Following orders.
We don't even know what the order is. Stand down until we know what's going on.
Remember that it'll be on the test. Poor Hunter has another huge problem on his plate. Not only did he watch the regs turn on their general and execute her, but now one of his own is trying to kill a child for seemingly no reason. Keep in mind that the chip broadcasts an actual signal, actual messages. This is why all the regs know what the order is, while the Bad Batch don't. One moment Crosshair's all, and the next he's just doing
Wrong.
all that info got beamed directly into Crosshair's brain in a second, and Hunter had no idea. On the other side of things, Crosshair is confused. The chip is so sinister because it feels like instinct. Crosshair is simply responding to his loyalties, and he hasn't had the time to take a moment and realize that those loyalties have shifted dramatically. The chip is really good at blocking these kinds of critical thoughts. You can see Crosshair's thought patterns being stopped dead in their tracks when he stares blankly forward and just says,
Good soldiers follow orders.
When a clone utters this phrase, we know it's because the chip is shutting down all other thoughts and broadcasting this suggestion. Crosshair is overwhelmed by the chip, especially when confronted with Caleb. The programming is so strong, in fact, that Crosshair seems to forget that he's not equipped for close combat. Padawan or not, it's a pretty dumb move to take on a Jedi. I hate that the chip overrides all sense of self-preservation. They'll go into the most unwinnable fights and like, my dear, what are you doing? As things de-escalate, we come to this moment where Hunter lies to Crosshair because he doesn't trust him, and who can blame him? But Crosshair knows instantly that Hunter is lying, and from here on out, their relationship starts to erode. Whether or not Crosshair understands why, he knows that he and his brothers are soldiers of the Empire now, and disobeying orders is dangerous. Keep that in mind from here on out. Crosshair isn't concerned with the inconsistencies in his own character because he is more concerned with him and his squad surviving.